Yeah, today we're going to be comparing the different eras of Godzilla to the different types of teams in the NBA throughout recent history. So going as far back as, let's say, 2012. I just kind of thought up of this idea today, and I got really motivated, really excited to work on it, and yeah, here we are now. I really wanted to make this video because there's more comparisons between Godzilla and sports than most people think, and I just thought it'd be something different and something new to try out. So first up, we have the Showa era, and the first thing that immediately came to mind was the Jimmy Butler era Miami Heat. So the biggest thing here is consistently inconsistent. So for those of you who don't know, the Jimmy Butler era Miami Heat were very up and down. But when the highs were high, they looked awesome. They were really fun to watch, very dynamic, and seeing Jimmy Butler at the time was awesome to watch. Loved watching them play basketball. But when Jimmy was hurt, Jimmy was out, or he was just playing poorly, the team looked awful. It looks like they didn't know how to play basketball. It was just horrible to watch and uninspiring. And that basically sums up the Showa era in general. The highs in the Showa era were pretty high. Like, you have fun with the movies. The lows were god awful, fucking horrible, and then the averages are just average. You don't feel really any particular type about them. The Jimmy Butler era Heat, when they looked average, they looked in between. Like, you don't know how they were to show up that night. And yeah, that's the Showa era. So for the Heisei era, I chose to go with the 2020s Denver Nuggets. And no, it's not because Nikola Jokic is big as fuck. It's actually because they're probably the most consistent team within the last 5 seasons. They, at their peak, they're championship contenders. They're going for the NBA Finals, and at their lowest, they're still a second round team. That's how good they are. And the Heisei era is I believe the most consistent and probably the best era within the entire Godzilla franchise. And the highs are very high. So you have the Return of Godzilla, Godzilla vs. Biollante, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla vs. Destroyer. That is very peak in my opinion, and yeah, there's not much else to say. Like, they're both just incredible. So the Millennium Era is definitely a bit interesting for this video. The Millennium Era starts okay. There's some potential there. You kind of see where the direction's going. You hit a giant spike or a flash in the pan. That is GMK. It really kind of blows away all the fans of the franchise away. And then you kind of go back down and remain consistently average throughout the end of the Millennium Era, that being Final Wars. I chose the Damian Lillard era Portland Trailblazers. Throughout the beginning of Damian Lillard's career in Portland, you see the potential there, and then you get the spike. That spike being the Western Conference Finals in 2019. The problem is, after that, the team just kind of hits like a very average point throughout the rest of his time there, and that sums up the Millennium Era. They can't really decide. They're back and forth between whether they want to stick with one theme or go to another, and that's really kind of the identity crisis that the Portland Trail Blazers went through as well. Not deciding whether they wanted to rebuild or continue to try to compete. It's very similar to the Millennium series, where they're you don't know what you're going to get out of it. You're in a gray area, really. Now, time for the Monsterverse. The Monsterverse really reminds me of the 2020s Phoenix Suns. At the beginning of the decade, the Phoenix Suns started off on a real high peak. They made it to the finals. They haven't been in the finals for, 30 years? And really after that, they just dropped and really fell below expectations, to the point where they didn't make the playoffs last year, and they didn't have a direction. On paper, the team looked phenomenal, and in practice, the team just didn't perform how they wanted it to perform. And that's very similar to the Monsterverse. If you take a look at the early beginnings, such as Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island, the peak is very high. You're coming back to back off of 2 phenomenal movies, and now you're entering Godzilla King of the Monsters, where it definitely loses its direction. Obviously because they didn't have the same director there, and from that point on, it's inconsistent. You never know what you're going to get from the Monsterverse from here on out. Very similar to the Suns, where they had 0 direction, and like I said, on paper, both look great, but in practice it just does something there, something's not clicking. And like I said, it's very bipolar, the MonsterVerse. Either you love it or you hate it. I'm on the side of hating it. So last but not least, we have the Reiwa era, and really this is the kind of area where Toho's really kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks and what doesn't. And it's kind of like the same idea of rebuilding a team from scratch, and you kind of at that point you can throw whatever you can on the team, seeing what sticks and what doesn't. And there's no better choice than the present day Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, they've been rebuilding for the last 5 years. And this past season, they actually achieved victory and won the NBA Finals. And that's kind of what the Reiwa era is like. You know, you have the anime trilogy, you have Shin Godzilla, then you have Godzilla Singular Point. Then they finally hit the big one with Godzilla -1, obviously winning an award for special effects. And yeah, that definitely would sum up the Reiwa era at this point in time, and it's only up from here at this point. Yeah, that's it. I appreciate everyone watching and spending time here with me watching this video, and that's it. Later.